Traditionally, Americans honor their departed men and women who served in the military, with final honors, at funerals, graveside services, and memorials. These events are a time-honored way of respecting those who served our country. Afterward, we turn our attention back to our daily lives. What happens in the following years? When dear friends and loved ones of the veteran have passed on themselves. The memory of that veteran that we honored those years ago fades away into the mist of time. The visits to the gravesite become less and less frequent, some reach the point that their burial sites are overgrown with vegetation. A sinking memorial is the ultimate fate of the gravesites of many honored veterans from the past. Year after year, decade after decade, these tombstones slowly sink into the ground, gradually erasing the only marker of their existence. How did Ernie, a retired lieutenant with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Department, start this project? The event that inspired Ernie to restore veterans' graves began during a visit to his father's grave. His father had been a sailor during World War II who, during the D-Day invasion, drove Higgins boats from troop ships to the shore, land soldiers on Omaha Beach, and then return with wounded and dead soldiers. While at his father's grave, he noticed a neglected grave of a soldier nearby, and he cleaned it up a bit. Sometime after this, Ernie and Carol happened upon an overgrown gravesite during a walk through an old cemetery near their home in Bellevue. They noticed this grave was covered over by underbrush. On closer inspection, they saw that it was the grave of a Vietnam veteran. They felt compelled to start pulling weeds, raking the area, and cleaning up the stones so others could read the soldier's name and dates of birth and death. This particular grave has a sad story. Just 2 years after the young soldier was discharged, he was killed in a car accident. You'll notice the obvious difference they made after they were finished. This makeover of a veteran's grave gave them both a great feeling. They had made this veteran's grave presentable to honor his service to the country. Ernie and Carol both felt the need to devote more time to cleaning up veterans' graves. Since that initial grave, they have restored over 300 graves, and have kept a record and photograph of every one grave they've touched. Ernie and Carol, now 85 and 84 years old respectively, they both feel the need to slow down a bit, and would like others to take up their project. He would love to share any information about his cleaning methods with anyone so inclined. How does Ernie go about his mission of restoring veterans' tombstones? Well, first he visits cemeteries in the area and observes the condition of the grave markers and tombstones. If he notices some that have been covered over and neglected, he notes where they are located. The next step is critical. He contacts the manager or owner of the cemetery, introduces himself, and explains what he does for the veterans. He then requests permission to proceed. He cautions anyone who might want to help with his project to never start without permission. Having permission to move gravestones is critical and could prevent any legal conflicts or misunderstandings. Be aware that the first rule of cemetery conservation and preservation is, do no harm. Ernie always takes a photo of the monument before he starts any restoration work on the grave. When he completes his work at the cemetery, Ernie always provides the manager or owner with a complete list of which stones he's restored. He always takes a before and after photo of each restored stone to document any chips, cracks, or breaks in the stone which were pre-existing or after happened during his restoration. Another caution is, do not attempt to move or restore very large or delicate tombstones, leave that to professionals with the proper equipment and know-how. You could do irreparable damage to the tombstone. Know your limits, stick to the smaller stones, and always be cautious when working with marble stones, as they crack or break very easily. The work they perform involves digging out from around the tombstone, prying it up to a point where a person can get their hands under the 30 to 60 plus pound stone. They then lift it up to a standing position. They then create a new base by putting stones, rocks, bricks, or other solid supports under the stone to hold it up above ground level. After the supports are in place, Ernie adds a bucket or two of sand to level out the supporting base. Once the base is in place, he carefully lowers the gravestone back into place and adjusts it to make it almost level. Ernie likes to leave it slightly tilted so rainwater will run off. Now, the cleaning cycle begins. Lichen and algae on a historic monument sometimes can be aesthetically pleasing, so the first question is, why even bother to clean the monument? The simple answer is that the mold, mildew, algae, and lichens are actually feeding on the stone and slowly destroying the monument. To prevent further destruction of the monument, Ernie sprays the stone surface with an industrial cleaner and lets it sit for a few minutes. This allows the cleaner to work on the stone. A good cleaner to use is D2 biological cleaner, although, if it's quickly removed and cleaned with soap and water, granite stones will tolerate the use of chlorine. After a few minutes, Ernie scrubs the surface with a stiff brush to clean off any dirt, grime, and mold. Then he rinses it to remove the cleaner. After the rinse, he cleans it once more with Dawn detergent. This is to assure that any remaining grime and dirt is gone. He now has a clean tombstone, but he still isn't finished. The last step is to place an American flag at each tombstone. Ernie has learned over the years that the small dowel rods on the flags will not withstand the whipping cords of a weed eater. To protect the flags, Ernie uses a 12-inch section of half-inch PVC tubing placed 6 inches into the ground, as a shield. He then places an American flag into the protective tube. The flag is now safe from weed eaters. Ernie and Carol both realize that they can't continue at this pace much longer. Their mission is to find young people who are willing to continue this final honor project. Ernie doesn't want contributions, he would rather you commit your time and a little effort. He would like to work with schools, scouts, veterans and religious organizations, or anyone willing to spend a few hours of their time restoring veterans' graves. Thank you for watching this presentation, and consider taking Ernie's offer. Keep this mission alive and honor our veterans' memory.